Right now on the flip side, I got two of my best friends with me, Michael and Terrence, and we're gonna be wrapping up our Pray 40 series. Just because we're wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Right now on the flip side, I'm with my friends, Michael and Terrence, and we're finishing up talking our... Right now on the flip side, I'm with Terrence, who's over here. Right now on the flip side, I'm with Terrence and Michael, and we're finishing up the topic of pray, and we're wrapping up our Prayer 40 series. Listen, just because the series is ending doesn't mean your prayer life needs to. Right now, episode 64, the flip side.
64.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode number 64 of The Flip Side. My name is Jason Caine. I'm here with my good friends Terrence and Michael Metcalf. You're brand new here.
Brand new.
Who are you? Tell us about yourself, man. Who are you?
Well, my name is Michael Metcalf. I am married to the love of my life, Michelle Metcalf. Check this out. Just 2 days ago, our 25th wedding anniversary.
Give it up.
25 years, bro.
Congratulations.
That's what I'm talking
Man,
about.
what is the secret? That's another episode. You can tell
That's
us.
another episode. I'm really deep on that one. And then we have two boys, 18-year-old, his name is Chandler, and our oldest, Charles Metcalf, he is 26, he is out in Oklahoma.
All right, good.
Yeah.
So you just literally got to California 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
From North Carolina.
Yes.
What have you noticed so far about California?
Somebody told me a lie.
What was a lie?
A lot.
Wow.
It is the same temperature here as it is back at home. I did not understand that we're in Northern California, so it rains and it gets cold.
That's correct. This is not SoCal.
No.
I'm from Atlanta. I didn't know there was a distinction either between Northern and Southern. I thought I was moving to LA, ended up in Sacramento.
Here we are. Very far.
I didn't realize it, man. Terrence is a California native.
I am, so I'm used to the weather.
Okay.
Hence why my coat is on right now. Because
Yeah.
it's cold.
It is a cold day. I got a vest, a hoodie, a jacket. I'm layered up. We're protecting ourselves.
You're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. So Terrence, tell us what you do around Bayside.
So I'm at our Midtown campus. Love it.
Okay. Midtown.
It's a joy. Run all operations there. Just make sure Pastor Bob, Pastor Ephraim, just make sure they have everything that they need. And
Excellent.
Make sure we're running hard.
Yeah, good. Well, we're here today to finish off our Prayer 40 series. We've been in it for the last 30 so or some days, have a few days left. But before we dive into that, Kurt Harlow let me know if you come on the flip side, you got to have coffee.
Coffee?
So
Okay.
today, our friend is here, and whenever somebody says our friend, that means they don't know their name. Can you tell me your name?
My name's Serena.
Serena. Tell us what we got here, Serena.
Yeah, so this is Valiant Coffee Roasters roast from Papua New Guinea.
Ooh.
It has flavor notes of dark chocolate, almond, and raisin.
Ooh, okay. Well, we're going to taste those notes in just one
Hopefully you will.
second. Thanks so much for pouring us up.
Yeah,
Are you a big
sure.
coffee fan, Michael?
Huge coffee fan.
Well, you done moved it to the right place because we don't do anything
Thank you.
without coffee.
Come on.
But as we're talking about Prayer 40, man, what is the most insightful thing, Michael, that you've ever learned about prayer?
Man, that's a big one. I would say the most insightful thing is that I've learned personally is that prayer doesn't always change the circumstance. Meaning most of the time when we're praying, if we're honest, we're praying for God to do something that we want him to do.
Of course.
And things don't always work out the way we want them to work out. But what I have noticed is prayer always changes me. May not always change the situation.
Yes.
It always changes me because it always gets me closer to him. It always makes me more aware that regardless of what the outcome is, God is still working on my behalf.
Right.
So
Yes.
prayer always changes me, even if it doesn't change the circumstance.
Yeah, and I think all of us, when we pray, we expect our circumstances to change.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is very insightful to know that, man, even if my circumstances don't change, I'm changing in the middle of
Right.
it. I'm
True.
becoming
So
wiser.
true.
I'm surrendering and depending on God
So
a whole lot
true.
more than I may.
Yeah.
And that is a very valuable lesson to learn throughout prayer, because when we have the other perspective about prayer, we think that, man, we pray, we get exactly what we want. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Yeah. How about for you,
No.
Terrence? What's kind of most insightful thing?
I
you
mean,
learned?
really, just even just kind of what Michael was saying. Just for me, it's always I got taught in high school. I remember my youth pastor telling I was going through an issue, and I was like, his name was Bob too. Go figure. All these Bobs. He was like, I was like, Bob, like, when's this gonna change? When's this gonna change? And he says, Terrence, I need you to raise your gaze. And I was like, what? He's like, I need you to raise your gaze. And I said, well, what? He says, I need you to take your eye off your problem and raise your gaze and put it on God. And he said, and just with that, as I've remembered that throughout life, is just what it does is when you are praying and when you start thinking about the qualities and the characteristics of God, you realize that, like we were talking about, even though my circumstances aren't going to change or may not change or they could change, that God doesn't change.
Yeah.
And
That's
that
good.
he's still, even in the tough and rough times of life, even in those times that we are crying out to God, that he is still true. He is still faithful. His promises never change. He's never changing. And it just, that for me in my prayer life is really what carries me through, is meaning that I am going to a God who doesn't change, who is always good, and at the end of the day wants the best for me.
Yeah.
That's good.
Would you mind talking about a time in your life where you've been praying for something and it didn't come through and God changed something within you in the midst of that?
Yeah, probably the most impactful, I had a mentor, his name was Van Grimes, and he took my wife and myself really under his wing in a really pivotal time in our life. Probably 5 years into the relationship. He's the reason we are in ministry today, by the way. But 5 years into our relationship, he got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, diagnosed with cancer. And he was leading a church at the time. And for weeks, we would pray, we would lay hands on him, we would believe God was going to heal him. And he went through a 2-year span of getting better, getting worse, getting better, getting worse, getting better, getting worse. And when he was better, our faith was high, and we're like, God's answering our prayers, he's going to be healed. But I was there next to his bed the day he took his final breath. In retrospect, what I learned is through the journey of seeing him go up and down and us crying out to God, my relationship changed. The relationship between myself, my family, our relationship with God was impacted greatly, not because of the outcome, but because prayer is a relationship. It's a conversation. It's just me talking to God, and we came out of that stronger. And I believe had we not been so passionate praying and believing God was going to heal him, my faith wouldn't be as deep as it is today, even though I didn't get the answer that I was looking for.
It's almost that the most valuable thing that could happen for you was for your prayer not to be answered.
Amen.
Man, I think that's true. What if the thing that we have to realize about God is he is, as you were saying, he has more wisdom than us.
Yes.
His character is beyond ours. And think about what would it be like if God gave you everything you asked for? How much different would your life be? Mine would be a whole lot more jacked up.
I'd be a mess.
I would ask for things that I know wouldn't align with God. So I'm thankful
bad.
that he does not give us everything we ask for.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes what we ask for is not what we actually need or we want. So in a series like this, Pray 40, when we're encouraging people from our church to pray more, to commit to God in prayer, not just for the super religious folks, but for everybody, man, prayer has an impact in our lives in a variety of ways. Yeah. Have you seen, Terrence, you just got here, been here 2 weeks, so you haven't seen anything happen.
I'm going to drink coffee on this one.
Yeah, but have you seen God do anything just in the lives of people at Midtown during this series?
Yeah. I mean, I think this series has really just ignited just a flame just in all of our people, I think across all of our campuses and those who watch us online. And I had a young man a few weeks ago come up to me, and he was thanking me, just high school kid, thanking me for this prayer series. And you're like, high school boy thanking me for a prayer series. And so I asked him, I was like, well, what has been so good about this series for you? And he says, in the beginning, you told us to commit for 40 days of praying about something. He says, I've wanted my parents to come to church. I've wanted my parents to fall in love with the God that I'm in love with. And he says, I never thought it would happen. He was like, there's no way. He's like, you don't know my dad, you don't know my mom. There's absolutely no way. And he says, I've prayed about it. I've been here week after week. He goes, by the way, I want you to meet my parents who are here this week. I mean, his mom is standing there just crying, and his dad just is emotional and was saying, this is what we've needed, and we are so thankful for you investing in our son's life. So now we are impacted by that.
That's
I mean,
powerful,
it's just what happens when people get a hold of just saying, you know what? I have a God who listens to me, and who really has my best interest. So that was huge.
Yeah, that's incredible. So,
big.
sometimes we got wonderful stories about how things turn out in the affirmative. God does what we ask him to do. What would you say to the person, and I think a lot of people are probably dealing with this, who are waiting on unanswered prayers right now? They've been praying for their parents or their child to get connected to the church, or praying for healing in their body and it hasn't happened. What do you say to the person who might be dealing with some frustration because it seems like God hasn't answered their prayers?
Here's what I would say. I would say we have to shift our perspective, because I believe most of the time in my life, when I'm frustrated or upset because God didn't do what I thought he should do, it's because I have an unrealistic expectation about what prayer is.
Wow.
All right, so let's stop right there.
Okay.
Not to cut you off. What is prayer?
Prayer is my conversation with God.
Okay.
Prayer is not take a ticket, take a seat, let me answer your order. Prayer is not, hey, what do you need?
Take a
ticket, take a seat. That's not what prayer is. It's my conversation, my dialogue with God. And if it's very difficult, all of us have sit in settings where we've prayed for one family and the answer was yes. That I'm going to heal your son, that I'm going to save your marriage, that I'm going to resurrect the business. We all have had experiences where we've prayed the same prayers to the same God and the answer was no. So how do we reconcile that? The way I reconcile it is Jesus had the same experience. Jesus' answer to his prayer in the garden was no. He asked his dad, if there's any other way for this to be done, let this cup pass for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's praying. He's talking to his father, saying, would you answer this prayer? Father God said, yeah, no. And that no became our yes. He had to tell his son no because there was a greater perspective. So sometimes we just have the wrong perspective. Our conversation, our prayer is always about our relationship with God. It's not always about the answer that we want.
Yeah. So it's about, you would tell them, man, to surrender to what God is doing.
Amen.
That's essentially what Jesus had to do. He said, nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done.
Exactly.
Why do you think surrender is so hard for us? What is it that makes surrendering to God's way so hard for us?
Well, we just like to be in control.
Amen.
We like to control the narrative. We like to control the situation. We like to control the outcome. And when you surrender, you are relinquishing control.
That's true.
So you're saying, Lord, your will be done. And sometimes the Lord's will is, like you said, is not our will, and it's something that we may not even want, but it's because he knows best. So it's that relinquishing control. It's hard.
Yeah. Man, I think one of the most difficult things about trusting in God is relinquishing control. I want to be the master of my own domain. I want to live my own life. I want to be in control. I want to do my own thing. I want to control all the outcomes. But if we are honest, we never have that freedom whether we put our trust in God or not. There's nobody who has 100% control of their lives. And I wish that we did, but we can't. But I think surrender is definitely putting our lives in the control of the one who's ultimately has control and surrendering to what he has to say about us. What were you challenged by mostly in this series? I guess you just got
2
here,
weeks.
so you have wow. 2 weeks is enough word, Michael. Good gracious. We're preaching the word. Terrence, since Mike just got here,
Let me take it.
He's still unboxing boxes.
No,
God ain't moving in. No, just kidding.
Consistency. If I were to be honest and transparent, prayer consistent. That's always been my challenge.
Right.
Consistency and just consistently taking time to have a conversation. That's always been my challenge. And just to stay consistent, having a conversation.
Yeah. So on a practical level, when you say stay consistent, if you're talking to the everyday person out there that is going to work, works a 9 to 5, not in ministry, what does maybe a consistent prayer life look like for that person?
I'll sum it up like this. I'll tell a quick story. My son and I used to drive to school every day. It was about a 20-minute drive. My oldest son, when he was about 10 years old. Every day we would be silent for 30 minutes because I think, what we're going to say, what we're going to talk about. We don't have any big events coming up. And I eventually thought, well, I'm his dad. Like, we should probably be talking.
I was thinking, man, you were a terrible father. You got nothing to talk
What should we be talking about? So I just started talking. I said, man, I had a tough day at work yesterday. And I walked him through what work was. And he said, man, it reminds me of this kid at my school. He started talking about his day. From there on out, we talked every single day. But it wasn't some formal, dramatic, big conversation. It was just a conversation. Consistency starts with realizing that prayer is just a conversation.
Right.
As simple as, God, this is how I'm feeling today. God, I'm stressed today. I'm stressed going into this meeting today. God, I'm hopeful for my family today. God, I don't know what's going on today. God, would you reassure me that I'm doing the right things? And you can simply throw those prayers up at any time, any moment, because he's always listening. He's always around. So consistency starts with just realizing it's just a simple conversation, and he's listening.
Yeah. How about for you, Terrence?
So I think just inserting it into it's not. I think sometimes we make it seem like this big just ordeal, and it's like, how do you insert it just into your regular just routine in life? You know, for me, I walk my chocolate lab every evening. That is my time to talk to the Lord. You know, we're out there for 30 minutes, but it's a part of my daily routine of what I do. And you know, there's so many people that they sit in traffic, you know, turn off the talk radio and talk to God. You know, it's just, how do you just input it into your normal just routine in life?
Yeah. So find something that you're already doing. You're sitting in traffic with your kid. You're walking your dog. You're doing whatever you're doing. And just live it out regularly.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like you got to set up a shrine in your house and bow down and pray or anything like that.
Right.
Just insert it into your everyday life. It sounds like is what both of y'all are saying, and just see it be consistent. Have you found that when you are intentional about prayer, perhaps maybe writing a prayer list or writing things down that you would love to see happen, that your prayer life is more effective? Have either of you witnessed that?
I would say 100%. Maybe 3-4 days ago, we're unpacking boxes, and I've got a journal that I've had for probably 6 years. And I don't use the journal all the time, but I have it on big events. Like, so we went to Ireland last year, and I preached over there, and I took it with me, and I just opened it up, and I jotted down, God, I've always wanted to preach in another country. That came to pass. And throughout the last 5 years, that journal has been a place to record and ask God for things. And I'm always energized, always jacked up when I go back and read the things he has answered and the things I'm believing for.
So I got to ask, have you been to preaching in another country yet?
Yeah, I preach in Ireland.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Boom.
Come on, somebody.
Look at God moving.
Right there.
Okay, how about you?
I mean, I think writing our prayers down, I mean, I think it's so crucial, really, because we move so fast. We are so busy that we are praying for things and God is answering our prayers, but we've moved on to the next thing that we don't even realize that God has answered prayers.
Wow.
And so we're asking ourselves, I'm like,
huh?
Lord, why aren't you answering my prayers? The Lord's like, can you just look at the last 5 things that you asked for that I answered,
really good.
but you've moved on so quickly. So when you have things written down, you start seeing that, wow, I asked for this, or I asked, or God directed me in this way, or God, you know, I needed this and God provided. It really just shows you that God is moving. And as we sing, you know, a lot around here, that he truly is a miracle worker.
So that song that you're referencing, let's talk about that for a second. It's Waymaker. Big song here at Bayside right now. One of the lines and one of the lyrics of that song is, even when I don't see it, you're working. How have you seen that play out in your prayer life?
I mean, I think that just, you know, knowing that God is constantly, you know, when we're praying for things and we're asking God, can you do this? Can you do this? And you're like, Lord, I don't feel you. I don't see you. But then it's like, going back to that whole raise your gaze thing, well, when you take a step back, you realize that, wait a minute, like, there's a lot of people that didn't wake up this morning. And God's word tells us that every day that we have is a gift from him. And so finding ways that even though I don't feel you or see you in the way that I want to feel you or see you, that you truly are still working. You truly are moving. You are giving me things on a daily basis, that things that you're giving me things that I don't even think to ask for. But because you're so good, you're giving it to me.
I think with that song, what I've realized is sometimes you can be in the middle of something that you're going through, and you've been praying about it consistently, wanting God to come through for you. And sometimes it's not until you're on the backside of that, when the answer has applied, when you look back and you're like, I didn't even know what God was setting up for me down the way if I could just be patient. So prayer, what I found, is a whole lot about trusting the character of God. Like trusting his resume, trusting that he's going to come through for me. Man, I've seen him come through in the past, so I got to have confidence in the present. But that doesn't negate the fact that we still have frustrations that happen to us. Yeah. In what ways has prayer just transformed your faith? The way that you've lived out your faith? How have you seen prayer transform your faith?
Well, I think I have to go back to what you said. The awesome thing about prayer is that when you are praying and then God shows up and either does what you thought, what you hoped, or most times even better than you dreamed, that you can't do anything except be more faithful. And you're trusting in his character, his nature. So now God's come through. It's like, I'm jacked up now.
Right.
So when I go through the next trial, the next storm, the next uncertainty, I'm standing on the faithfulness of God from the last time.
Right.
I'm standing on, he answered my prayer last time. He came through last time. When that happens, bro, it's over.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it helps you move forward because you've seen what he's done in the past.
We win this game.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that if people could just remember that right there, I think that's so crucial. Just really, I've seen you do it before. You know, another song we sing, you know, I've seen you move the mountain, and I believe that you're going to do it again. Yeah.
Terrence, it seems to me like you have a connection between your prayer life and the music that you sing. What does that look like for you?
I mean, I think for me, just worship is huge for me. It is just for me, it's an expression of just who God is, and I think there's so many songs that we sing that I think a lot of times we forget that the worship that we sing is birthed out of Scripture. It is birthed out of the characteristics of God, and so when you take those and you embody those, and it's so easy that when you're going through some stuff to even just continue to remind yourself you're having a horrible day. Just be like, you know what, Lord? I know you're a promise keeper. I know you're a way maker, and I know you're going to perform miracles.
Right.
And so it helps you. For me, it just helps me get through. It helps me get through the tough stuff.
Yeah. One of the concepts I think that I've learned through this series is what it means to give my problems to God. That's one of the key things that I've learned through someone else's preaching during this series, man. What does it look like to give your problems to God? Practically speaking, what does that look like?
It just means ownership. Like we own more than we should. We were never created to carry the weight and the burden of the things that we carry.
Yeah.
God owns that.
Yeah. Wow.
He paid the price for that. He paid the price for that on the cross. But we want to carry it. We want to take him for salvation and for protection.
Yeah.
They want to carry the burden.
I got an example of this that it just brought to my mind. I was traveling with my kids to Atlanta just this past week, and we had all these bags that we're carrying. And my daughter or my son, I can't remember which one, was trying to push the cart to the airport. And I'm like, give me the cart. You can't handle it.
Right.
Because you're pushing it, you're bumping into people.
Exactly right.
You got us delaying our flight, folks ready to fight us because you're carrying around something that was designed for your father to carry.
So good.
And I think that's what we got to remember, man. Let go of the cart, give it away to God. The way that I learned it was through a guy named Max Lucado. He said, when you take your car to a mechanic, you drop your keys off, you drop off your car, you leave, and you wait for them to call you back. And when they call you back, you come get it. You don't worry about it because you've given it to an expert.
There you go.
So if we can trust our cars to a mechanic, certainly we can trust our cares
Come on,
to the
somebody.
Messiah.
Okay,
Amen.
you preaching
He's telling
now.
us to
Okay, you
cast our
preaching
cares on him.
now.
I mean, I had to do it one time. One time.
Okay.
Anyway, as we close out, man, this series has been phenomenal. If you missed any of the sermons, you can hop online, listen to them again. Let it be a refresher to you throughout your life. Hopefully this prayer 40, as Pastor Andrew said early, isn't just prayer 40, but it's prayer 41, 42, 43. It just becomes a regular rhythm of your life. But thank you so much for watching. Remember to like or subscribe. If you've heard anything to hear today that you want to share with others, please share this post as well. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you guys so much for watching The Flip Side.